Okay, so in this video we're going to start on our wheel design, and for this exercise I'm going to do a demonstration. I would like you to sort of follow along and copy what I'm doing. I'm not going to be using a canvas to copy another design or clone an existing wheel or try to, I'm going to be designing from scratch. So this QR fitting you can close this up now. We don't need this at the moment. We are going to start a fresh design. And in here, we're going to start our sketch. And on this front face, we're going to start our wheel from the origin point. So now, even though it's not going to be round, I'm going to start it with a circle. So the very outside diameter of the wheel is going to be 270. So it's always best to draw it like that's going to be where the pivot point's going to be. And drawing the whole wheel in, and we can cut the bits off that we don't want. I guess that's sort of how it's evolved into this more modern profile anyway. So I'm going to offset this face here, inboard minus 25 mil. So that's going to be 25 millimeters thick. When you're designing your own, I would, have a play around with that number if you prefer it thinner or thicker in your hand. So start with 25. The inside of the wheel we're going to design up as a square at this point. So we're going to create a rectangle, center rectangle. And from here, we're going to put in 155, tab 155. Just short of touching that edge there. So they're not actually touching that inner circle, but that's okay. Now, this will be sort of where our buttons are going to go inside of this box. We'll shape this up to suit our needs a bit better as well. And we won't need the whole thing. We won't need all of this box, because it will just be way too much for the number of buttons we're going to work with. So we are going to put in 5 buttons into this design, because as we looked at with our QR fitting, we've got those terminals on the back here. There's 6 terminals. One of them will be our ground. The rest will all be our signal for each of our buttons. So at some point we'll draw in our button layout. Alrighty. So next thing I'm going to draw in is sort of a top profile and a bottom profile. So get that line tool up again. And I just want to zoom in and make sure I'm getting that edge there and not on that part of the profile. I'm just going to continue this across to here. Now I don't want this to be just a straight line across the top. So I'm going to hold down my control key. I'm going to select these 3 lines now. I'm just going to turn them into construction lines. And I'm going to create a bit of an arc, which will be the top profile of our wheel. So arc, 3-point arc is my go-to. And I'm going to choose where it starts, and choose where it finishes, and I'm going to choose how big it's going to be. Now the height, at this point, I'm just going to eyeball it, and then we'll put a dimension onto that feature. And that's pretty much exactly 600, so we'll level it out. So that'll be the top profile of our wheel. Now I could go through and trim out, these top bits, so we don't need those anymore. I'm going to leave them, and I know it might be confusing for them to be there, but when you're designing something like this and you want to have be able to sort of print it off and test it and check it, it's sort of handy that you still have all the original features. So if I did need to make it a little bit taller or a bit shorter or a bit wider, I've still got all the original elements I can work with. All right. Next up, we're going to add our it's like a shoulder which runs through here, which will give us a thumb hole and a hole for the rest of our fingers. So I'm going to use the line tool. Now I'm just going to use keyboard shortcut L for that. And it's just going to go straight across here. And then another one straight across here. I've got some constraints pop in when I put those down. So it's aligned itself to some things. I'm just going to make sure I have a constraint that they're straight. So that looks like it's going to be okay. It's going to be parallel with this line by the looks of it. And that one's going to be perpendicular to this one. So that all works out. That's nice and straight. Just need to put some dimensions in for that. So from the origin point, I'm going to make this 15 mil. And I'll make these also 15 mil. Okay, now this might start looking a little bit confusing at this point because we're going to start bringing more and more lines into this feature, into this sketch. So you want to try and get the dimensions out of the way as much as possible, just so that they're not it's not too confusing. All right, so I might put in an offset here, bring this one down about 20 millimeters. So now this here will be my pocket for my thumbs, which will be at the top of the wheel. That's sort of going to be the, this will provide strength through the design, so my handles don't sort of flex on me. And the bottom half of my handles, they're going to be free, so I'm not going to constrain them. So let's design them now. I'm just going to turn this one into a construction line as well. And we'll draw in down here. Okay, so that's going to be where I'm going to finish the bottom half of my grips. And unlike this side, where I've got a curve up here, I'm actually going to finish the button box up a little bit higher. So let's put in another line, L, and I'm going to draw it around about here-ish. And I'll put a dimension from the origin to here. We'll make it 55. Oops. All right. So now I'll just put in an arc. I'm going to use a 3-point. Tangent would be nice, but I'm just going to curve the button box inboard up to this line. And we'll go to here. And when I've created the end of that curve, that arc, I want that to be a tangent. You see that little icon pop up? So that's going to be a tangent. So we're going a line to the origin out to here. I don't want to put it right in at this stage, about there. And I'll use my dimension tool, so D on the keyboard. We'll make this about 15. So you notice that the line's still blue. So this one seemed to be fully constrained. This one's still blue. I think it just needs to be aligned to the origin. So bring it down a bit, or you could put in a horizontal vertical constraint between that point and the origin. And we'll just put a curve on the bottom of this to finish off the button box. So create arc, 3-point arc from there to there. D for dimension, put in dimension on here. Let's see what 600 looks like just to keep it consistent with the top. That's okay. And the last thing I want to do is just finish off the wheel, so the handles. So you can see button boxes in a few parts through the middle here. and then I've got this part here. So I'm just going to put in a line which goes from here to, oops, missed that one, to here. Line to here. So now I've got all the shapes that I need to create the wheel face. Now, as I said, you could go around and trim elements. I would recommend against that, just because I feel like it's beneficial, especially if you're modifying this later on. You're making slight tweaks to it because you need to adjust things just a little bit. So that's worthwhile keeping those around. I'm just going to hit Finish Sketch, and we can just put it onto that sort of 3/4 view and start extruding these features. Now you just do them all at once, just start selecting them. Yeah, they're all the elements that I need at this stage. The material that we're going to laser cut this wheel from will be a 3mm acrylic, so 3mm. Hit enter, and that's all we need so far. It does look a little bit angular, so we'll work through some fillets on this in the next video.